Every gilded cage is built with walls of comfort. The only question is what you're paying for them.
Okay, so when we think about the story of the Third Reich, we usually think of politics, economics, and war. But what if I told you that the real ideological blueprint wasn't forged in government buildings, but in a secret occult society? A society obsessed with myths, magic, and a lost Aryan homeland.
Yeah, we all focus on the military machine, right? The tanks, the armies, but simmering just underneath all of that was this incredibly strange, mystical belief system. The whole idea was to build a new future by literally digging up a forgotten mythical past.
And get this wasn't just a fringe belief held by a few fanatics. No, this was institutionalized. They had an official state-sponsored think tank dedicated to proving that all these wild myths were actually historical fact.
This organization was called the Ahnenerbe, which basically translates to ancestral heritage. And its mission was crystal clear: find archaeological proof of Germany's ancient Aryan origins. We're talking about them funding expeditions all over the world, all in this massive effort to legitimize a truly dangerous racial ideology.
So, who was the mastermind behind all of this? The person pouring immense state resources into these quests? Well, it was one of the most powerful and feared figures in the entire Nazi regime.
That's right, Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS. He didn't just support the Ahnenerbe, he personally founded and ran the whole show. He used what he called a leader principle to direct its work, which really just meant that all of its research had to serve his ideological goals, no questions asked.
And you have to understand, this was not objective science, not even close. It was what they called folkish research. Think of it as a deeply nationalistic, racially charged form of study that cherry-picked folklore and ancient symbols to build a very specific and very fictional story of a pure, glorified German past.
So this really begs the question, right? Where on earth does a guy like Himmler get these pretty out-there ideas? They certainly didn't just come out of a government office. They came from a much more obscure and way more secret source, one that had been mixing German nationalism with the supernatural for a long time.
If you trace it all back, the core of this whole occult and Volkish ideology leads to one place: a small but incredibly influential secret society that was operating out of Munich right after World War I.
And this was it, the Thule Society. It was this potent, toxic cocktail of post-war nationalism, vicious anti-Semitism, and deep-seated esoteric mythology. It became a magnet for people who truly believed Germany's destiny wasn't in politics, but was rooted in some kind of mystical racial history.
And the beliefs that were fueling this society? They were absolutely fantastical. We're not just talking about old folktales here. We're talking about cosmic conspiracies, hidden masters, and secret worlds.
So central to their whole worldview was this myth of Agartha. Get this, a hidden, underground world inhabited by a superior ancient race. They believed that special messengers from this world came to the surface to share secret knowledge with the chosen few. To them, this wasn't just a cool story. It was the proof they were looking for of Aryan superiority.
But here's where it gets really chilling. The Thule Society wasn't just some weird book club for occultists. It was a political launchpad. It actually sponsored and effectively created the German Workers' Party, the very same organization that a guy named Adolf Hitler would later transform into the Nazi Party.
You know, the Thule Society didn't just pop up out of thin air. It was a strategic move. It was set up as a public-facing front for an even older, more secretive order, the Germanenorden. This cover let their radical ideas move out of the shadows and reach a much wider, more influential audience.
And if you look at who was in this society, wow, the membership list reads like a who's who of early Nazi leadership. We're talking about men who would become the architects of the Third Reich's most horrific policies, people like Rudolf Hess and Hans Frank.
But what about the big guy? Was Hitler himself a member? It's a huge question, and despite the society's undeniable influence on Nazi ideology, the historical record is actually pretty clear on this. There is simply no evidence that Adolf Hitler ever attended a single Thule Society meeting.
So in the end, the story of the Thule Society leaves us with this one really unsettling question. A small, secret group mixing racial hatred with myths of a lost world, literally provided the ideological fuel for a movement that set the entire world on fire. It's just a stark reminder of how quickly and how dangerously fringe beliefs can reshape our reality.